Well, welcome to the last track. Where's my track? There we go. Welcome to the last track, B105, last track for the day in this hall, and then followed swiftly by free beer. Sorry, the Reader's Choice Awards. So I hope you'll be joining us for that. So before I start with these guys, I'd like to know about you guys. So what I want to know first of all is, are you streaming people? Raise your hands if you're pedigree streaming people, and broadcasters. Sort of a mixture of the two. And how about content? Have we got news? Financial services, I know Andreas. Yeah. Reuters over there, they kind of do a lot of stuff. So news, financial services. And sports, any sports people? Sports guys? Adult content? No. Okay. So music? No, Mark's doing adult now. I didn't know you were doing the AV guy's doing adult now, so very good. Okay, so this session is called Live from Almost Anywhere. Last year we ran the same session. It was a great success. We had a good look at the Arab Spring was the core topic of last year's session. And definitely we saw the technologies and the business models that we're going to explore today really come of age around the Arab Spring. I think there are lots of environments where ad hoc contribution feeds, where ingestion of live video streams from new territories have changed. Those workflows have changed significantly, certainly in the coming on for 15 years since I started doing webcasting, and the costs have changed significantly as well. So we were talking outside as we were sort of preparing ourselves for the session, and one of the key things to understand in the live outside broadcast environment. Some people call it outside broadcast, OB, some call it occasional use, OU, there's all sorts of terms for it. But one of the things that's changed over the last 10, 15 years has been the migration off MPEG-2 based transmission down onto MPEG-4. You can fit 4 times as much bandwidth into the same pipe, so prices went down by roughly a quarter. So my estimation, by about 2008, which is the last time I was out in the field using VSAT kit myself, you're looking at a 1 meg feed costing about £300, £400 an hour. I don't know what you guys are getting, so maybe I was getting it cheap, maybe it was expensive, but that was the rough pricing. That was down by about a factor of 4 from about 8 years before. So most of the early webcasts I did, we were backhauling with MPEG-2. By the middle of the noughties, we were backhauling with MPEG-4, and prices had gone down fourfold. Then along came some of these vendors' technologies, the cell muxes as I call them, cellular multiplexers. I'm very fussy about that term. Some people don't like it. I've given it to the industry. It is distinct from link aggregation and channel bonding, and I'm very happy to get geeky about why I use cell muxing later on, if needed. But I call them cell muxes. They have opened up a whole new wealth of backhaul and ingestion options. And I think the most impacting change was seen in the Olympics this year, and certainly two or three of these vendors today really were core to that transition. If you watch the London Olympics this year, this is the first Olympics where you could follow every sport, and to a greater or lesser extent, a lot of that access was facilitated by new backhaul technologies from link aggregators, cell muxes, and channel bonding devices. I actually predict, just as a throwaway comment, and we can pick this up if you want to later, I predict that the Brazil Olympics will be the first Olympics where we follow not every sport, but every athlete. And I think that will be the technology step change that happens over the next 4 years in the broadcast cycle. Again, that will happen because of cellular. It can't happen because of satellite. It's line of sight. It's too complicated. But there are challenges with cellular, and they're to do with SLA and QoS. And they're interesting. So, enough waffle from me. I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves. I'm going to give a very, very short description of what each of their companies do. And then we're going to explore some of the workflow structures that you can put in place if you're looking at using these technologies, and some of the pros and cons of those. So, starting from my left, or everyone else's right, Mark, could you kick the ball off?
Hi, Mark Kornfeld. I'm one of the founders of Livestream. I was heading up engineering and product development based in New York for 7 years. I'm now back in Europe, looking at expanding into the European market. What Livestream does is we're a platform that allows anybody to go live from anywhere at any time, really democratizing the creation of live video. Is that short enough?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Let's keep it running. So Ronan, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. Ronan Artman, LiveView, VP Marketing, based in Israel, actually where our base technology is, where we pioneered actually the technology of 3G, 4G bonding. We provide a solution of services to tier 1 and online broadcasters in over 60 countries and all 5 continents. That's pretty much it.
Lorna?
Good afternoon. My name's Lorna Garrett. I'm the co-founder of Garland Partners Limited. For the last 4 years, we've been providing 3G mobile uplink solutions primarily to the UK market. So we've got a huge amount of experience of working with many different customers in many different applications.
Michel?
Hi, my name is Michel Weiss. I'm Managing Director of Mobile Viewpoint, one of the other manufacturers of CellMux equipment, as Don names it. And yeah, we're not that big as my friend over here, but we one of our major marketing events this year was the Olympic torch relay coverage with the BBC. And yeah, we are mainly active in Europe and the Middle East, and also of course in other parts of the world, but not that big.
Mike?
Hi, my name is Michael Buehler. I'm a sports journalist and producer with Swiss TV, and I help covering the Olympics in London with a mobile uplink device.
So, my first question, I'm going to work across the panel with this. Broadcast SLA. So broadcast is a business built on high-grade service level agreements. And when you're setting up a backhaul, when I used to get contracted much more often to do live events, the first and key question that the broadcaster wanted to, or the issue that they wanted to resolve was, is this signal going to get through, and is it going to get through clean? Okay. I'd like to rephrase that to when is good enough good enough? Okay, so let's start from the content producer's end. For you, Michael, when is good enough good enough? When is a signal that you can acquire from the field usable in your journalism?
I think that's the most tricky question of them all, because we're not always in agreement when good enough was good enough. We were on site and often had the feeling that that was good enough, what we had to offer. Back in Zurich, they sometimes thought that's not it, and they would not air it. So it really depends on how compelling the content is, I think. If it's absolutely a must-have, anything is good enough, and if it's nice to have, it has to look really good.
So content sounds cool to that. I'm come to this end, Mark. We were talking.
Content is king, right? So it's all a matter of how rare the content is, how difficult it is to get it through other channels, how possible it is even sometimes. And it depends also who you're distributing to. You know, if you find your right niche, a piece of content that doesn't necessarily appeal to a TV audience might be really appealing. So it really depends on the content and who you're distributing to.
So good enough. Let's talk to the technology providers. Lorna.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give the example of when the Egypt crisis was unfolding, what was happening over Tahrir Square. We basically had a broadcaster, hanging out of a hotel balcony, and he was sending back over cellular networks 800 kilobits of content, and that just got spread everywhere. Everybody picked it up.
So in a case like that, any enough is good enough, I think. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ronan, you were going to say?
No, I completely agree with both the speakers who said about content. Content is the king. I know specifically from broadcasters in the US, for example, that will say us when the content is really important for us, we don't care if you freeze the picture and maintain the audio. So I mean, and going back to the tricky one, depends on the content. Some of them will tell freeze the picture for 15-20 seconds, give me the audio and pick up the signal when it's back. It's important for us to have that on screen. In some places they will say, like Michael said, we need it full HD 1080i, otherwise we will drop the signal. So it's tricky.
Yeah. So, Michelle, have you found selling into broadcasters that you've had a complex battle selling cellular bonded cellmux links against traditional links? Is it the flexibility and availability that wins?
Now, when we started 5 years ago, it was very difficult to sell it in because nobody believed it could even work. But then, of course, you see other people also starting to do it. It gets in the news, and actually from Tahir Square and that type of stuff, people really are amazed. Oh, how it is possible? Yeah, via 3G bonding type of solutions. And then you see that people start ringing you up instead that you have to call them for your sales pitch. So there has to be some examples in the market that shows the value of it, and then it starts automatically from my point of view.
And so both Mobile Viewpoint and LiveView were very prominent in the Olympics coverage, actually with mainstream content, the torch relay in the Mobile Viewpoint case, and and a number of the events like the lead of the marathon. Is that both of you?
Men's marathon.
Were there, yeah. So the marathon chase bike, or that example was when I was watching the Olympic content this year, I started to think this stuff's really coming of age. I actually don't think many people really appreciated what was happening, because I think historically we've all seen a marathon pack running towards a camera. But what I really noticed, because I was aware of the technology, was we were with that pack whenever the vision mixer wanted to take us there. Is this stuff sublimating into the industry? Is it just becoming prolific? Or is it still at a very early stage? I'm trying to understand how, what stage of adoption the broadcasters are with this technology. So, Michel, let's start with you, and then.
The adoption of the technology also depends on the guys who have to work with it, we found out. So the director of the department likes the technology and wants to buy it, but the camera guys and the people in the field need to use it. So if they complain it's heavy or whatever, then it is not used. But that's something that you have to stimulate. They have to see the value of it and have to understand that they can do on a very cheap, because that's also a driver these days, to make on a cheap way very appealing content that you can make from a walking crowd, can make a very nice shot of the potential new president of the Flemish part of Belgium as last weekend. And that's really appealing, and that makes that people start using it.
Lorna?
I think numbers tell the story. Beijing was the first time that the technology was in use by NBC, and they used one unit. I mean, in the Olympics we have over 100 units, about 3,000 hours altogether from the Olympics, while 20 units were at any given time broadcasting live. So if you're asking whether the industry adopted this technology, I would definitely say yes. Just judging by those numbers, that tells the whole story.
And so, Michael, are there times when, have you found this kit easy to use in the field? Is it something that you instantly go, oh, I must take my cellmux with me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think the usability was not the challenge. It was more like the reliability question that was hovering over the whole production the whole time. I didn't have much experience before, and I didn't know how it would really work out in this environment here, and I think that was the big challenge for us to really know when it was going to work and when it maybe wasn't going to work so well.
And did you generally go live, or did you
Yes,
do
we did.
file transfer?
Actually, we came here with a concept of going live pretty often, and we kind of gradually changed that during the games and went more to feeding or store and forward. But we went live in a way that couldn't hurt. We just used it as picture-in-picture option. So we were covering, for example, the cycling race, and I was up on Box Hill by the Swiss team, and when they were preparing food and drinks and everything for the Swiss cyclers, I would just go live. And when in Zurich they decided the signal is stable enough, they would add it as a picture-in-picture, and when it was not stable enough, they'd just leave it away.
So I'm going to come back to that cycling race in a little bit, but I wanted to ask you, Mark, you probably have more experience of receiving this type of outside broadcast, processing it through a workflow and distributing it. Are there specific challenges to ad hoc connections that you have to bear in mind with an infrastructure, or do you just treat it like any other encoding source?
I mean, no, these guys are pretty good at putting the signal together. So so that it's well consumable by services like ours. The reality, I think, the biggest challenge is setting expectations on the viewer side. So when Livestream has about 30 million unique visitors a month, about 4.5 million people signed up to use the service. So you have a really wide variety of content, right? But when people watch, let's say, a bike race that's being filmed with one of these devices, what they see is they see Livestream, they see the brand around it. But then, if something doesn't work, the challenge is, well, Livestream's broken. So for us, it's been a bit about managing that, and I guess, it's about notifying the users and letting the users know about what's going on. It helps also to let the users know what conditions the productions is being done in, but it's not always possible. So I think that's the biggest challenge is really setting the expectations for the viewers, for them to know what's going on their screen.
And focusing on the anywhere, or almost anywhere, I think I'm going to ask this in turn to each of you. I'd like to know what the most extreme anywhere you've had on your various platforms is. So, Mark.
That's a tough one. We've had a lot of streams during the Arab Spring that were very inspiring. Those are the only images going out of these countries. One journalist strikes me. He was in Benghazi in Libya at the time, and when the city got completely sealed off, he started transmitting from there using very simple means, and these were the only images going out of Benghazi, and he ultimately got shot and killed 2 months later by the pro-Gaddafi forces. That was really intense. In terms of the type of content and kind of the motivations behind it. But I would say, in terms of location, probably the craziest location was when this boat left from Turkey to go to Israel. You remember that story?
Yeah.
And the Israeli forces attacked the boat. Well, the only live stream that was going out of there was going through our service. That was through a satellite uplink. That was pretty insane. You could see things building up on the boat. You could see, you could feel the tension. And every news reporter, what was crazy is every news reporter would go, they would have a set time to sit in front of the camera, and they would be able to speak for 20 minutes. And what would happen on the other side is the news outlets would do a screen capture of our player and broadcast that on air. There was nothing else. There was no other.
I was going to ask about integration. You answered it before I had the chance to ask. Ronan, let's hear your case then.
Well, I had some time to think about it. I think for us, first of all, we see a lot of usage right now in air balloons and airplanes and choppers and boats. I think one of the nicest one that has been done with us is actually a diving expedition to look for a wreck ship from the early U.S. war back in the 1800s, a ship that sank in front of Florida, and actually divers went down and broadcast live to all schools in Florida, and the children were able to communicate with the divers and ask them questions. Thinking about everywhere, I just actually spoke some of my colleagues here. I'm leading an expedition on December for LiveView employees for the Kilimanjaro, and actually we are going to broadcast live and to see whether we can actually capture that and from the top of the mountain. So that's definitely and anywhere or everywhere that just to see if that is possible. So that's a personal achievement and a kind of personal test for us to see how far the technology can reach.
Good. Lorna, have you got a good case, an extreme almost anywhere case?
I've got a light-hearted example. We had a couple of days' notice. MTV came to us. They said, we do the reality TV show Geordie Shore, which is pretty awful anyway on Sky. And they said, we want to do an online interview with the actors from the deep down in the basement of a nightclub in Newcastle. And we gave them a backpack. Off they went, filmed it. They had 20,000 hits at 11 o'clock at night. Not me. And they said it worked flawlessly, so they had no problems. They had probably 2.5 meg signal going back to their downlink server in their London studio, and it was a quite a good example.
Warzone story from the sound of that. So. Michel.
Yeah, I had some time to think about it, but the most thing I remember quite well was quite impressive was in Switzerland. There was a landslide, so a big landslide was coming down from a mountain, and a lot of people were trying to help those people who were covered. But actually we had a live image from a helicopter from a newspaper flying above it. And the next day there was a lot of trouble in the newspaper. People on the ground were not able to make any connection to get people in for help, but they were able to see it live on television from this helicopter. So that was quite a nice thing that, first of all, I didn't expect that it was going to work actually, and the next thing is that there was quite some problems in getting connectivity on the ground, while from everybody on television couldn't see what was the big problem over there.
Michael.
And,
sorry. No, Michel, finish.
And I had one last thing, but it's a bit unfamiliar to you probably, but in the Netherlands we have natural ice on the canals. So we had some skating event last winter for 200 kilometers, and we did bond a guy with a 2-SIM solution on the back of his back, and he was skating his 200 kilometers around the Netherlands. And actually about 40,000 people watching that live the whole day, watching him skating, and it's really a Dutch thing, but it was very nice to see it actually. And actually people saying, I like the environment,
Yeah.
just the white snow, etc.
Excellent. Michael.
We wanted to do a story about the rowing coach in Eton Dorney, and he said, well, it's going to be difficult because I'm going to be cycling along the rowing. So we said, no problem. We're just also going to cycle along. So the talent took one bicycle, I took the other one with the backpack and the camera, and we cycled along. You could actually see us on the broadcast on the other side cycling.
I think that reminds me, was it one of the Cellmuxes that was used for the boat race this year? I'm sure I saw a guy cycling with a backpack and another guy sitting on the back of a tandem bicycle. Was that you guys?
Probably.
The boat race, yeah. Was that you?
And the other one was when the Swiss athlete won the triathlon, Nicola Spirig, and I was running along with her husband. He was like, he's also a triathlete, so it's really fast, and I had to run along with the backpack and the camera for the finish. That was also quite challenging.
So I'm looking back at the audience. I think.
Good exercise, huh? Good exercise for you.
Yeah, yeah. The whole Olympics are a good exercise for me.
So I think looking back at the audience, I think the sports guys are probably happy. I'm not quite sure we're going to have impacted the financial services guys here yet. So we need to have a think about where that might apply to these guys in the audience. Have we got any stories about where covering corporate events, covering business television events has played? We talked a lot about entertainment and sport here. And they obviously present challenging environments, but there's got to be other applications for this technology. So again, I'm going to start from Mark.
I don't know if it's a challenging environment, but I think it's within the context of life from everywhere or anywhere. One of the stories I really like is in May this year, a small Swiss community did an event in the University of Lausanne, and they invited a bunch of people. They had 30 people that went to attend the event, and they invited this famous gamer to speak at their small event. The gamer's name is Diablo X9 for anybody that knows kind of that area. But he has a lot of followers, and he tweeted about it. Within an hour of the event starting, those people got 30,000 views. So you can think about, live from anywhere, right? 30 people in a classroom, 30,000 views online within an hour, 13,000 comments, 25 minutes average viewing time. I mean, that's a statement for the live streaming from anywhere, right? Or from everywhere. I think for me that, thinking about conferences and more corporate events, that's how I see it. It's, the ability to break that physical barrier and go beyond.
You touched on something that came up in the Video Infrastructure Summit yesterday, which was, I think, rather well phrased as herd mentality, or the herd effect of people suddenly catching a live event. And I think probably your platform, more than the others here today, how do you plan for that? How do you plan for something which happens in Thailand exploding? Have you got extensive CDN relationships in place?
Yeah, we do. And when we started, we were really bad at it, obviously. It's very difficult because it catches on, I'm sure a lot of you saw the YouTube stuff, the Red Bull Stratus event on Sunday. 8 million views or whatever it is, 3 million, 1 million within a couple of hours. How many people knew about it before, right? So So that's really, really difficult to scale. And in fact, there is no other way than having some amount of wastage in terms of your infrastructure and the way you're kind of prepared for things to blow up at any moment. Some stuff you can plan, the royal wedding, it's going to be big. But obviously, most of the time you got to be prepared in terms of capacity, not only with CDNs, but also your own capacity, because you have application logic that you can't scale on the CDN, right?
So, Ronan, do you have the same issue of preparing the distribution of your technology?
In most of the time when we're talking to broadcasters, there is no question about it. When you're going streaming, that's when you need to prepare for streaming. For example, we had I'll give two examples. First of all, a guy ran the Japan marathon, the Tokyo marathon, with an LU-40 attached to his back, and actually was broadcasting the entire run from start to finish, and about 50 to 60,000 people attended this live stream kind of event, which was huge in terms of, if you think about it. It took him about like 8 hours. When you talk about corporate event, for example, Boss wanted to celebrate the Jenson Button Hungary Formula One victory, and they actually followed him. They had a party back in Budapest, and they wanted to document his entire day, starting with a few laps and then going after into the hotel. And they documented his entire journey from the morning until the evening when he got, and they live streamed it to Facebook page, so his follower can actually build the momentum towards the event. So those type of things, especially when you live stream, you can never know how many people will join. So you have to scale it from the beginning. Otherwise, you'll end up getting into a page where so many people attend, and there will be no way for them actually to view that. So you really need to prepare, but for those type of events, it's really hard, because you never know how many people will turn out to those events. And like you said, the herd thing, it's viral distribution of the news, and you just need to anticipate and hope that everything's stable.
And Lorna, how do you, through GPL, how do you ensure that when an event's happening, there's kit in the hands of the broadcaster fast enough? So, for breaking news, you've got to rely on them already having the kit, presumably.
We work very closely with LiveView. So, for example, we had to prepare 100 backpacks with 7 data SIMs in each of them, with 4 different networks. So, that was a lot of preparation, and that we had to have time to do that.
But that must have changed the nature of your business to an extent, because that's a new type of business to deal with. People ringing up saying, I've got a spontaneous event, I need your kit, and I need it in Northumbria in 2 days.
Yeah, we can respond to that. We do have several backpacks available, but we don't tend to really run a hire model. We do want to work long term with people who want to do regular events. Right. You asked about other examples. I just really want to give an example where our focus is on sport as well. So, we've got a lot of English Premier League football clubs using LiveView Backpack. We've got Chelsea who are using it for youth games, making better content on their TV channels and their websites. And one of the best examples was when Man City took it on the top of their victory bus parade. It was, the only footage online they were getting live. They were interviewing the players and the manager from the top of the bus. You had no line of sight issues or moving around issues. It gives you really good coverage for sports events.
So, Michelle, there's 2 topics here. I've started 2 questions and they've both gone off. But so there's the business TV side. Have you seen applications for this technology in the business TV environment? Let's start with that question.
Yeah, we also worked on another concept together with Endemol International. They are, of course, known from the Big Brother type of programs, and they worked also on a new format that they follow people at home. So the same thing with people at home. And then they used the backpack solution for remote editing. So they just wanted to watch a live, low-resolution stream to make it possible to make remotely cuts about the interesting parts of the content they were seeing the whole time. So nothing live on television, just for editing. And they wanted to have the ability that we made for them, that you could remotely set mark in, mark out, and then download automatically those parts, get them ingested in your post-production environment. So to automate the whole production remotely, it was quite successful. Unfortunately, the show never took off at anymore, but that's it, format's always the problems.
So, Michael, wandering around with a backpack with a bunch of transmitters stuck on your back,
Yeah.
has it caused you any concern?
No, it wasn't running most of the time. The more store and forward we did, the more comfortable I felt, because I would only start it up for store and forward and then shut it down again.
So this is a question as I've been covering this area, it's a question I've been repeatedly asked, and I had we took one of these vendors' technologies for a road test a little while ago, and my trained monkey who volunteered to strap it to his back and wander off with it did turn up with a roll of tinfoil and was planning to wrap it around his head. The particular technology had the ability to distance the aerial, but it is an interesting question. I think I'm avoiding asking the vendors this question at the moment. I want to ask the people who are using the technology what they think. So it strikes me, that I don't know what the wattage is, 3-4 watts or a couple of watts in these things. A cluster of that by the back of your head. I've felt the radiation when I've turned those things on. Whether it's doing me any harm or not, I don't know. But it is a consideration which I never had with VSAT, because I'd never stand in front of the buck of a VSAT. But you're saying it's
Maybe
not
3 weeks weren't enough.
Excellent. Okay, I'll ask that to the vendors. How are you guys dealing with this, Michel? Let's start with you.
Yeah, the radiation is always something that pops up when things get introduced into the market, and we face the same challenge. And to overcome this problem, we actually made it possible to extend the aerials away from your head. Because I think, like everybody in this room, you get your stuff certified against SAR, like your iPhone is also tested for that. But still people don't believe it, so you have to do something to also get away the feeling. And that's why you made an extendable aerial. That's the main reason behind it. And as benefit, it also works better, but it was more second.
And Ronnie, you've taken a different approach to the live view packs.
Yeah, I think, SAR and SC and FE, or radiation is a big part of the design of the units that we do, and everything we keeps it that all the radiation is away from the body. And I agree with Michael. When we design something and you test it against iPhone, believe it or not, we get less. When you measure the SAR, we are less than iPhone 5. I mean, whatever you do. Now you might feel the radiation, but not necessarily so. So everything that we design is that even the antennas that we provide, which are proprietary antennas that we use, and something that are designed as part of the unit itself, and we make sure that everything is directed away from the body. If you think about your iPhone on your phone, and actually when you speak, you hold it next to your ear. It's not the case with a backpack. The backpack is on the backpack and actually radiates away from you. So that's something that definitely we put a lot of efforts and a lot of concern in that, and that's question pops a lot. But I think right now, as we see more and more units in the hands of broadcasters and online media, people realize that and when you provide them the necessary tests, the necessary statements of all those labs that actually test those, they feel comfortable.
So the technology is gradually getting smaller. We've gone from backpack to chocolate box size to camera top size, and as we're getting down to camera top size, you're not going to have the ability to move that aerial away from the top of your head so much. Do you think this is going to buck the trend?
Well, first of all, I think one of the trends is right now, as we see with Panasonic, that we have a strategic partnership with them that actually integrate our unit within their new line of P2 cameras. And then actually we develop a protocol with them that allows them to control the device from the camera itself, and you get all the visual statement from the device in your viewfinder. So definitely we see that that the unit is in one place while all the control it's from the camera, and I think this is one area where we see definitely the future.
And the live stream, I want to jump back over to Mark, the live stream broadcaster. Does that combine with a bond?
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't combine
Not right
with a
now.
bond. Oh, okay.
Not right now.
That kills my next question. So, so let's ask you a different question. Curation of content. This is a hot topic this time last year. You've got content flooding into your system in an uncontrolled way from the general public. YouTube in an on-demand environment face issues with very complex challenges with content. The innocence of Muslims come to mind immediately. Increasingly, there's going to be challenges as people are covering stuff that is shocking. There's a suicide case recently that I think comes to mind. How are you approaching curation? What are your safeguards to make sure that whatever you're putting out live isn't going to put you into sort of a regulatory hot soup?
It's a really good question, and actually, believe it or not, we really like this question because we think people don't ask it enough. As you said very rightfully, there's been, when you transition from VOD to live streaming, all the rules that apply around, the DMCA, 48 hours to shut down content, for those of you who know about this stuff, for live streaming, it's irrelevant, right? Because when something is bad and is happening right now, you got to shut it down right now. It doesn't matter if you do it 24 hours later on the recording, if everybody's seen it live, right? So we've developed a couple of different methodologies. One of the things we really believe in is that actually any company, it's definitely true for us, can monitor the trending content. So when I talk about trending content, right, nobody really cares if there is 1 or 2 or 3 people watching something. What they care about, so let's talk about illegal content for a second, somebody that restreams, a TV feed, for example. Nobody cares if there's 3 people watching it, right? But when it starts becoming popular, let's say it's the World Cup, there's 100 people, 1,000 people, suddenly there's 20,000 people watching it. We talked about it before. For live streaming, that happens really quickly. It spreads really fast, and it trends really quickly. So you can actually see that. If you monitor those signals, the popularity, and everybody does, you can see that, and you can have a really good impact on your content if you actually watch for these trends.
So
that's one of the things we do for people.
So do you keep that value judgment internally? Is this illegal? Is this unethical? Is this unacceptable content? Do you just keep that internally, or is it something you have some method to?
So we work with different partners. Things that infringe our terms of use clearly. It's our own call. Things that are we work with partners to allow them to shut down content themselves. In fact, content owners have an access to a back-end portal that they can go to and go and shut down content if they believe it's infringing their rights. And they're obviously liable if they make a mistake, but it's their choice.
So just for reference, I've been having we were talking about this at Viz yesterday as well. We've been having some discussions in an internet governance forum that I'm part of about whether there's a place for an externalized certification group that companies like yourself, companies like Google can sit there going, I'm just not sure. There's a freedom of speech issue here which has got to combine with a respect for cultural differences in what's acceptable and so on. I don't know if that inspires some thought, but I think there may be space for a new approach to certification of content, which is maybe externalized from the companies themselves. I don't know what you think.
I mean, the problem with this is it's very difficult to scale. As I said, we've had 4.5 million people sign up to create their own live streams. And we have, at any moment in time, we have between 4,000 to 8,000 live streams happening on the platform. So if you're going to scale, the full thing manually, it's difficult. There are automation systems that are starting to become very relevant. But certainly, I mean, it's a topic you can talk about it for hours. It's really interesting.
We'll put a panel session in the program, Eric, wherever it is for next year. Okay. So we've got calls now. I'm going to leave 10 minutes for Q&A from the floor, so get your questions ready, chaps. But just 5 minutes. Let's just talk about SLA and the challenges that obviously cellular's created a bit of a renaissance in ad hoc content. And I think it's an incredibly important transition. And I think as I was talking about the costs of satellite falling and cellular then creating a disruptive challenge to that VSAT market. Starting with Michael, let's look at the downside of when the cellular solution doesn't work. Have you been in the field, ready to do your live event, you've switched to air, and everything's gone fuzzy?
Yes. No. We tried to avoid that scenario by not going live in critical situations anymore. There were places where you just couldn't get out with anything. One of them, ironically, being the O2 arena. Where there's just too much traffic. In some places, it was really good when you arrived. You went to the mountain biking venue and you had 10 megabits per second. Then people started coming and it went down and down and down and down. And during the race, you had nothing. And then as soon as people left, it went up again. And I would use the unit as feed point for other ENG crews even, because it was faster. So the real challenge was to decide how and when are we going to do it. Can we risk to plan it in to go live somewhere, or should we better do something and feed it and do it 5 minutes later? So I think that was difficult for me, but even more difficult for the guys in Zurich who tried to plan a rundown. Because if you have one piece, 0.17 in your rundown, 2 minutes, interview with Roger Federer, for example, and it just doesn't happen, that's not good. So I think that's the big challenge, that when you're in a very dynamic environment, you don't know if it's going to work or if it's not going to work.
So Michel, do you see a space for dialogue with the mobile operators to be able to secure quality of service? Is that dialogue that's already happening? Is that dialogue that you see is yet to happen? Michel?
Yes, with the introduction of 4G, it's more easy to do dedicated bandwidth for subscribers. So in Portugal, I know that an operator called Optimus is selling it. They're selling 4G cards with prioritization on it. And they're also selling it themselves as a kind of service for dedicated bandwidth via 4G networks.
Yeah, Lorna, sorry, you.
We can also, we're working with a company in the UK and we can provide what we call quality of service SIMs. So the getting to the mast is okay, it's the backhaul to the internet where it's a proprietary connection, and so that does help. But there are all sorts of things. There's a lot of user error as well. Sometimes you really don't want the backpack around a whole load of people. You know, for you it's impossible to avoid that, but there are, you know, we advise quite a few of our customers how to use it. There's some simple things you can do. I mean, at an extreme level, we're testing out some RF solutions where you can then send it 500 meters, a kilometer away to the live view backpack and then uplink it. So that's on an unlicensed RF frequency.
And what about in other territories? So we've spoken about Portugal and Europe. Are you finding, Ronan, because you've got quite a global distribution, are you finding this type of quality of service and the relationship with the operators opening up? Are they engaging in this, or do they see this as a bit of a pesky problem? Because at the end of the day, they're going to have to increase their capacity in cells which may not be used by anyone else.
Actually, I think some of the cellular providers actually see us as a new partnership. I mean, we have a partnership, strategic partnership with Sprint in the US, for example, because for them they see how they can expand their offering to their local customers. Because then right now they added LiveView as one of the products that they can actually go and sell to their customers. I think battling congestion, battling SLA, this is the most significant part in terms of development, to make sure to add buffering, what we call tunnel mode, and make sure that you don't lose the pictures. And like when Michael says, I mean, when you're getting 10 megabytes on the beginning of event, and when you're dropping down, what do? So it's external antennas and other means of technology that will allow us to overcome that. We always say it's satellite-like equipment. It will never replace satellite, but we're looking into ways in actually getting as close as we can in providing those type of, so when Michael put his live view on, he will know that he can actually go live no matter what happened in that particular event. And I think that's what our technology and the developers are battling to ensure that. So.
Okay, so you mentioned the competition with satellite and coming full circle now. So VSAT, I mentioned earlier, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, price I've got in my mind from when we used to use it was £384 per hour for a 1.4 meg stream. So Cellmux is very aggressive in that mode.
Yep.
So IBC this year, I was hauled, after my articles about all of your technologies, I was hauled by Eutelsat onto their stand.
Yes.
They wanted to fight back and say, look, we've got News Spotter. I was sitting there pretty disinterested until they told me the pricing. And my jaw hit the floor because they're offering, when we ran our rig, it was 28 grand for a self-aligning dish, £384 for a 1.4 meg feed. Today, the News Spotter service is much more like 5 grand for a self-aligning rig, which you align with an iPhone, and 40 euros an hour for 10 meg uplink. Now that's surely going to regenerate and disrupt the cellular industry, which is interesting because I haven't finished writing about how the cellular industry is disrupting the VSAT and the broadcast industry. Is this a challenge? Is it just going to mean that a bit less profitability, a bit more aggressive pricing from you guys, or is it just a different market now? Are you?
I think it's it's challenging, and I think we are not replacing satellite, as I said at the beginning. I think we're complementary to satellite environment. As satellite prices go down, keep in mind that they have the limitation, which is line of sight, and they have to be in a fixed position. Whether we give them portability, we give them, from high-rise building to basements to up on hot air balloons, and everywhere actually where you get cellular reception, you can broadcast. So we are not. Actually, we're complementing them and allowing the broadcaster to do more with cellular technology. I don't think we'll replace them, but we do look at that. I think in the cellular technology and live view is one of them, as how to integrate our services part of them. Most of the SNG tracks that built today provide cellular technology as well. I mean, those are hybrid solutions, all of them going that way, and even current SNGs are providing wireless cellular technology within. So we definitely will see that two technology coming together, and a broadcaster go out, he will make a decision whether he goes satellite, whether he goes cellular, but that's based on the decision up on the place where he is right now.
Anyone else on the panel got any comments on that, on the satellite and the cellular thing? Are they complementary? Are they competing technologies?
I can definitely say over the last 3 months we've been contacted by a lot of different OB truck manufacturers who are looking, they see it as another tool in their toolkit. So they are all asking us about 3G uplinking and how they can integrate it into sat trucks. So we're not competitors so much anymore.
And my final question, Mark. You're getting all these different forms of signals in. You're principally setting them up with live stream for distribution to live channel, to direct to web in a sort of OTT model. You're obviously an interesting aggregation point for broadcasters to potentially pick up the stream from. You mentioned earlier that one broadcaster had been screen camming your streams. Are there moves afoot in models like yours to actually handle that standards conversion back to facility line SDI feed or whatever it may be? Is that do you see a downstream connection to the broadcasters emerging, or do you think, or do you see that as part of your role?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, not only broadcasters, but obviously all of the distribution platforms, right? Connected TVs, obviously all the mobile platforms, but also broadcasters. And we actually have technology that allows us to take these streams and have an SDI feed out of that. And yeah, again, it's a question of content, right? Yeah. And we have some content that is interesting to these broadcasters, and we're happy to work with them to provide it.
Excellent. Well, look, I've asked these guys a wide range of questions, but I'm sure I haven't asked all the questions you guys would have liked to ask. So are there any questions from the floor you guys would like to ask?
Hello. I recently saw a demonstration from Google Glasses where they actually fell out a plane, filmed live into their social media. And what I thought was really interesting interesting about the sample video that was coming from the Google glasses was that the people appeared not to notice the camera in any way. It was like talking to someone wearing glasses where, you know, you're unaware of the camera. Have you used any similar techniques to stop people from being nervous of the equipment?
Very interesting question. Let's start from the right. Let's keep these answers quick so we can get more questions. So, Mark.
Well, first I'll start by saying that demo was absolutely amazing. I loved it. Then, you know, the format, you know, I'm sure our users have tried many different type of interactions. I can't speak to the specific. Probably these guys will have better answers.
Ronan, any thoughts about that?
Well, I truly that the demo looks magnificent. I think the thing is, we tend also to take all our equipment to a smaller form factor, starting from the backpack to a smaller one to up to an iPhone. I mean, I think Google Glasses for me are not so different from the iPhone, from the cameras and the other means that the people are using right now to broadcast and to stream and to do all the other things. It's just a very fun and interesting way to think that what the Google Glasses obviously gives you the information on top of anything else that you're streaming. But I think people, just an example, I was driving yesterday in Israel and suddenly I happened to see a car accident. And interesting enough, most of the people just jumped out of their car and started to film that. I was like,
What
okay,
happened to
someone
first aid? Yeah,
yeah, it's like someone needs to go and give the guys help, but everybody was standing and actually filming it and probably either streaming and sending back images to the guys. Look what I just saw. So I think it's one of the things that right now it's our nature to document everything and to stream everything, and privacy right now becomes the issue. But we see that all over. I think Google Glasses will just add on another layer on top of what we are already used to.
So, Michelle, you've got your technologies. You've got quite a lot of security application and history in the security space with Mobile Viewpoint. Have you? This question sort of leads on to obfuscated cameras and being able to watch live from everywhere. Have you got any comments about that?
Yeah, we have sold quite a lot of stuff to the Dutch police, actually, of course, where we're coming from, and they use small devices to transmit live to the police station, especially when there is football matches going on and they just surveillance to the city. And in the central station, you have a very good idea what's going on in the street if there are already people cluttering together to plan riots and that type of stuff. So it's in security is used already for quite some time. It's now not really hidden cameras, but small cameras over here or over here to get a good idea remotely what's going on, actually.
It sounds like something that applies to the sports industry as well, Mike, or as much as cameras in balls, cameras in cricket stumps. Well, if you cricket.
Actually, at the Olympics, this was one of the main reasons why we chose this technology, was to stay under the radar, not to arrive at some venue and everybody would already notice, oh, there's guys with cameras. We also took an extra small camera, so you're just kind of like hanging around and suddenly we were there, and as opposed to ENG equipment with light and sound guy and everything.
Sorry, I was looking at my watch. We've got time for maybe two. They're giving good, robust answers here, so maybe only one more question. But is there another question in the audience? Andreas?
I have a question about interoperability, especially between vendors. So we are following the market, especially of AV signal transport, very closely. And I get a little bit reminded of the good old video conferencing times. You have one vendor, you have to buy two boxes, one for the sending, one for the receiving side. But actually, I would say it's 2012 now. It's more about figuring out, okay, buying the sending side from a vendor is something we can understand. Why do we have the receiving side? So how far are we down the line with, for example, saying, okay, I have a sending side, but on the receiving side, I can get standard MPEG-2 transport streams, H.264 essences, or having a mobile viewpoint sender and a live view receiver. So how far is that going on the line? Is it a consideration at all?
Well, maybe it's a good opportunity for me and Michael to discuss here, but...
I can tell you that the streams coming out of our system are actually compliant with the players like VLC and QuickTime. So, but we found out you have to download the latest version, otherwise it doesn't scale up or something like that, you know. So we are in front of what standard technology is doing sometimes. So that makes it that you have to buy our decoder, but you don't have to actually. You can try it with all the off-the-shelf stuff if you want.
Yeah, I think it's fairly new. If you think about it, it's a 6 years industry, and I think we are still kind of in development. Each vendor is actually still developing its own kind of. So interoperability usually happens with the industries that are more mature, kind of, and very very standard. We are still playing with it. I think part of that is that's why we are working kind of with a lease model, because think about it, every 2-3 months there is a new version coming up. I mean, the algorithms are changing, and not yet.
I have a feeling Andreas and these two vendors are going to be in the corner of the free beers working this
Not
one
yet.
out.
Every vendor is at 20 years later. We would have started interoperability 15 years earlier, right? It would have been a lot easier for everyone. So,
Yeah, I'm looking at much more mature industries that they don't have interop functions. So I think we still have some time to go before those type of services will come into play.
Just to be difficult about it, there are actually IETF RFCs out there for link aggregation protocols, so maybe we should go back to standards. We are bang on time. There is time for one more question if anyone's got one. Or there's the attraction of free beers to go rushing out of the room that way to go and get the Reader's Choice Awards. So, any last questions? There we go, Jonathan. That's the beer helper.
It's just a quick question on CDNs in general. What point on average is a CDN justified to power the distribution side? So I'm thinking maybe more on for a corporate that is doing a broadcast, and at what point would they need to invest in the power of the infrastructure of a CDN rather than, for example, maybe broadcasting it off their own servers or something like that? I know it's a general question.
Well, at least
You're going to sell me on this one.
Go ahead. CDN is your territory.
Well, okay, so put it simply, it depends on how much traffic you expect, and it depends on the skills you have in-house, and it depends on where that traffic is coming from. You know, what a CDN or a service like us will give you, it will give you the peace of mind that you don't have to worry about infrastructure. You send a signal in, you're going to see a signal out. In our case, you will have all these features like all the social network integrations, sharing, embed, all of that stuff. If you can and are willing to do it all yourself, and if you have a repeat business that has an interest at doing it, then it's definitely doable. But then the CDN, it's 60,000 servers around the world. It gives you a distribution and a proximity in terms of the servers that you won't get if you do it yourself. Does that answer? Yeah.
Wouldn't native multicast be lovely? Okay, I think on that note, I'm going to wrap the session up. A round of applause for our panelists. I hope we've distributed the questions well. And if you hadn't guessed it, the Reader's Choice Awards are through next to the exhibition, and there is something called free beer there, so I'm gone.